Crop Circle 2, an album by UK rapper Nines. It came out on the 28th of April 2023. This is 15 songs, 43 minutes and 20 seconds long. You good for me to round that down to 43 minutes?
Yeah.
Coming off of Crop Circle 1, which would have been what, 2018? Or thereabouts, 2017 maybe, and then following on from his most recent project, Crabs in a Bucket, in the special year of our Lord 2020. Nothing big happened in the year of 2020, of course.
It was a quiet year.
It was a very quiet year, just in life in general. But Crop Cycle 2, so this is the first album from Nine since his release from prison, his most recent stint. So very interested to obviously pick up and see what he had to offer to us on this album. Crabs in a Bucket was obviously a chart-topping album. Crop Circle 1 went quadruple platinum in the streets, if not on the charts. Yeah. So Nine's definitely one of the more prominent rappers to come out of the UK in the last decade or so. You selected this album?
Yep.
What was the thought process behind selecting this album?
It was an album that I didn't even know released until we started recording our last episode, and we were talking about some of the albums that had come out on that Friday. I think it was just, especially us in the UK, it would be a shame if we didn't talk about an artist as prominent as Nines when he drops an album, especially one that's named Crop Circle 2, the follow-up, well, not follow-up, but the sequel to an album that is legendary in Crop Circle. And then on top of that, just with the vibe of what we've been talking about in this episode and some of the UK artists that we've been celebrating, it feels right to review a UK album. So it was just all good timing, man.
Definitely. But before we get into that, if you're a fan of this type of thing, we do album reviews every single week on our podcast, which is obviously Two Stubborn Nigerians podcast. So you can catch us on Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast from. Don't forget to check us out on all of our socials. We can find us on Twitter at 2S Nigerians. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at 2_Stubborn_Nigerians. And whilst you're here watching on our YouTube channel, please do like the video, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, leave a comment to let us know how you think about this album, let us know what you think of the review. If there's any albums you think we should be checking out, please do let us know in the comments. And yeah, let's get into it. Crop Circle 2 by Nines. As we do here, what were your sort of overall initial thoughts? What were you thinking around themes? What did you pick up on? Take us through
it. It was a good listen, man. In terms of, I turned on this album, and Nines let me know exactly what this album was going to be about from song number 1. That intro was phenomenal in that Nines basically hopped on and said, "Yep, cool. Let's go through my career up until date." And that journey he takes us on, I feel like it was really just a synopsis for what was going to be experienced throughout the rest of the album. In terms of this whole album, he's telling us that, yeah, I made it in my career and I started out in the streets, but I've gotten to a point where most people would say, cool, you can leave that street life behind you. But what you guys also have to understand is, although I made it to this point, there was still a certain amount of pressure because of that life that I used to live on the streets. And there was a certain amount of pressure because there's just a certain amount of danger that he's called upon himself. Like, there's bars in this album where he also be talking about, and I can't remember what song is on, where I think the specific line is, I'll carry that thing on me because I'd rather risk a bird than be on a shirt. And it's just like, yeah, like he really hammers that message home throughout the entire album. And I think as a theme, it's beautiful. It's very beautifully said, because one thing that you hear a lot when these, let me know, celebrities, let's say celebrities, when you see a lot of these celebrities getting in trouble or getting in trouble with the law, end up in jail, you hear that same kind of message a lot from a lot of people on Twitter. It's like, man, this person made it, man. Why are you doing this? Why doesn't this person know that they don't have to live like this anymore? I'm not innocent of it. Me too. When Mikey Williams got in trouble, I said, man, you're messing up your family in the back. You shouldn't be doing this, blah, blah, blah. This album really changed my perspective. because suddenly I'm thinking, man, just because you made it doesn't mean that your history like disappears or deletes itself. And I think that's one message that Nines really gets across throughout this album is like, yeah, I'm living this life, but this life that I used to live isn't just magic. There isn't magic away. Like that is still very much a part of who I am, a part of how I got here, and I still have to deal with the consequences of living that life till this day.
Last week when we spoke briefly about Ashanti's album, Ashanti, I said one of the things that I found really interesting was the fact that the album is a journey from her being foolish to her becoming unfoolish. This album is a journey from intro when you're in the street to outro when you're tapped out. And I really found that very interested in the dichotomy, and then all the issues that you find sort of in between that he has to face. And I think what you've pointed out there was really a prominent feature throughout of like I'm trying to live a different life and live the life that, you know, my status now dictates, but that gang life, the life that previously lived, will always be there in the background lurking. So even when you go into these new spaces, you carry new things, you carry those things with you. So there's like a bar on Line of Fire, part 6, where Nines is like, run up on me, I'm willing to die for these chains. Now the gang taking pictures in Cancun. Bitch, that ain't a dimple on my face, that's a stab wound. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like, these like go, oh, I love that dimple on your face. Like, that's not a dimple. That's from when I was stabbed, like back when I was a teenager running through the streets. Like that's a scar that will live with me physically, but then there's emotional scars of Olivia. There's the mental scars of, like you say, why he'll always, like you said, that mentality to still be carrying weapons because like I'd rather do the time than be in a box. And that, but then the journey that the album takes you on, from him starting off, like you say, intro, letting you know the story and the come up to the outro, being able to say, I don't know who stabbed who, I don't know who's selling what, I don't know who's got packs where, I don't know, I'm tapped out, I'm not in the streets, industry, I'm out of it. So I thought that was a really, really clear message and journey that went through that Nine sort of laid out for us there. With that, then I think we both picked up on very similar themes. What were some of the lyrics? What do you think about the lyrics and that helped tell that story?
Man, it was poignant throughout. I've used this same type of description before, and I'm going to use it again. Nines doesn't do too much in trying to get you to hear what he's trying to say. He's very like, this is a matter of fact, like lyricism type of shit. And now one line that it really like grabbed me by the scruff of my neck when I heard it on the outro was Nines literally saying, "Don't call me to get your chain back if you get robbed." And at that point, like in my head, because this whole album to that point is him talking about how I still have one foot in the streets to a certain extent. Not that I'm happy about it, but to a certain extent, I can't get that foot out. And then for him to be on this, I'm saying, "Don't call me if your chain gets robbed. I can't help you get it back. I'm tapped out of this, I'm tapped out of this, I'm tapped out of it. I'm not in the streets." And like for him to like say that line so poignantly to a point where me, who's like, I'm listening on my, you know me, on my first listen, I don't necessarily listen out to all the words. I'm not trying to catch every word. I couldn't help but listen. It grabbed me out of I really like, it grabbed my attention. It was like, wow, okay, hold on. And for that whole song, for him to now talk about how him having a daughter, he'd spend time with his child, like his, man, the songwriting throughout this album is just so poignant. And I think is one of the benefits, like the tones that he uses, the cadence that he uses, is so his lyricism stands out beyond everything else. Beyond everything else, I hear every word. It's so, the clarity is crazy. It's crazy. Like it's impossible to miss bars. Like it's impossible to not listen to every word he's saying throughout this album.
It's really interesting, even like what you're picking up there, because I think also the way like that theme carries through in his lyricism, because like there's a bar that he has on the outro as well, where he's like, I ain't trying to run the hood, I gave it to my young G's. And then when you reflect on like the story he tells in Letter to Hydro interlude, where it's like telling that story of how his boy who got bagged like left him his line essentially, says, "Oh, you gotta pick this up and you gotta run it and like go out into the street and make the peas and do whatever." Like he's now sort of like, "Yo, I'm out of it." Like he hasn't. I mean, he has got bagged multiple times, but in this context, he hasn't had to get bagged to then like step out of the life. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there are people who thought I'd be trapping on the block forever, but Zeno Records is the new Rockefeller. I wouldn't go that far personally, but I understand the sentiment of what he's saying. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna fight with the nigga. Do you know what I'm saying? If he wants to say that, I feel him. He should feel that way. I appreciate that. Just as a hip hop historian, I wouldn't feel comfortable making such a declarative statement. That's what it is. But now I'm with you. I think the bars are poignant there though.
Is the bar where he says, "Oh my gosh, what's the line?" Where he says, "Yo, my ops are thing. My ops are gas that I made it because now that I have to pay as much tax." It's like, oh my god,
yeah,
my god, I love it, man, I love it. The bars throughout this are poignant. The poignancy of this album, oof, man.
It's the lining curve he goes on. Like even if you look back at Highly Blessed, where he starts off that verse and that bar, and he's like, "I got famous, I still hang on the mains. I'm rich and still gang, I ain't changed. Like serving 2 on the back of the range." And then even like the internal lining throughout that song where he then talks about they killed Nipsey Hussle on his own block, they killed Young Dolph at his own block, Snoop on his own block. Niggas come for me, I'm emptying this whole Glock. Man. To then get to the point of the end where you're like, I ain't on the strip, bro. Like I'm in the studio recording. Like you ain't finding me out nowhere. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm good. So yeah, I think I think, like I said, the lyrics are poignant, and even if you're just listening through, and again, because there's a lot of features on this album. Well, not necessarily a lot, but there's a number of features on this album. Everyone else as well is really poignant in the shit that they're saying, and we'll probably get to features in a bit as well. But something like Clavish on Different League, for example, and some of the shit that he was saying there, and knowing his come up and what he's doing in the game right now over here, it's like it was really, really good to hear in that spot. Let's take it to production, man. What do you think of the overall production and how the project is sounding?
Really, 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 really good. I enjoyed the production from beginning to end. I think every beat does what I need the beat to do, in that is good enough by itself that I could bop my head to the beats that I'm hearing. But at the same time, the beat is never overwhelming. It's never the predominant sound. The album knows what it needs to do, in that the main star of this show is the story and the journey that that Nines is taking us on from beginning to end, and it cannot overshadow that, because it's not that's not the purpose of this album, and it never does. It really never does. Even when the beats are a bit more like creative and they're a bit faster or they change up, Nines is the star of the show. Even on the songs that are a bit more fun, like Calendar. Calendar doesn't necessarily need to be a song where like I need to hear every single word, because really he's just talking about how he has all these different girls, he's trying to juggle it. But I have my Monday girl, I have my Friday girl, there's an issue because my Tuesday girl wants a Friday, so blah blah blah. But at the same time,
sample's crazy.
The sample is crazy. The sample is insane. Of course you have to go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, Thursdays. Yes, that's the only sample you can use here. It just makes too much sense. And at the same time, I am catching every single word, every single bar, every single flip of cadence from Nines. Why? Because the beat knows, hey, we have to let it breathe here. We need to give space here. We need to go into here. This here, lower the drums. Here, do this. It's insane. It's insane. And then, as we always get into, in terms of sequencing, I think this album is sequenced really well. Slightly, I don't say it's too long, because I don't think it's too long. What I do think is there is a point in this album where, and this is literally my only criticism of this album, where I start to feel like, okay, I get it. Where he's kind of telling us the same thing. The message of, I'm in the streets, but I've made it. So I don't need to be in the streets, but there's a part of that street life that I'm still living. that message is kind of repeated a lot throughout this album, and it gets to a point where it's like, okay, yeah, I understand. You told me this same thing 7 times now. How many more times are you going to tell me? That is a bit of an issue. But that being said, every song is good. There's no song on this album where I can say, didn't need that. There's nowhere where it feels jarring from one song to the next song. So I think it sequenced really well. I possibly would have suggested maybe cutting a couple songs. I don't know what songs you would cut, but I think it could have been 1 or 2 songs shorter. Because he got his point across regardless. But it was a really good album. It was a really good album. Really sequenced really well, produced really well.
I'll start where you finished. I don't think it's too long, but it doesn't need to be this long. Because it does get to the point where if I was just listening to this as a fan and I wasn't listening to it knowing that we were coming in to review it, I probably at the back end would have started to zone out a bit. And so it doesn't need to be that long. Like this, all the songs are good. And if you're actively listening to it, as we really all should be, but we know that we're not, like, then you'll still pick up on it. It won't be too much of an issue, but it doesn't need to be as long. Like, it doesn't need to be as long as it is. It could have been shorter and you would have got the message and point across really well. So I agree with you on that point. I agree with you on most what you're saying about the production. I don't think there's anything special there. Like, there's no real moment where I thought, oh, this production is crazy. I think really only Favela got me like, oh shit, yeah, I fuck with this. And maybe What's Beefing a little bit. But there's nothing too much on production where I'm sat there like, yeah, this is like crazy. But it all serves the purpose of each individual song. You've got those different facets and different type of beats. So Favela sounds completely different to Calendar, which sounds very different to Tony Soprano, which sounds very different to Different League. But the quality of the rapping and the quality of the song making and construction comes through throughout, which is really good. I do have to take, a gripe, but Rat shouldn't be doing hooks. I don't really like it. I don't like it. I've never really been too much of a fan of it in general.
Right.
I don't think he should be doing hooks, and I don't think he should be doing hooks because the dichotomy of that is that we're gonna be all right if we put Nath Smalls on every hook. Like, and it's been that way for me with Nath Smalls for multiple years now, and it's been that way for me with Wretch for multiple years now. Where it's like, bro, you put Nath Smalls on a hook. Like, I don't know if I've had a bad one yet. And he kills it on Different League again.
Yeah, for real.
So yeah, I think that those are like 2 things that just I had to point out in terms of the production and some of the production choices that were made. But overall, it's a good project. Overall, like it's solid. I don't think it does anything. Like I said, it doesn't do anything overwhelming. I don't think there's a single song where I say it's carried by production. I don't think that's the case. But it doesn't need to do anything overwhelming because the bars are so good and the rapping is so good overall through. Features,
everyone showed up. Everyone showed up. Yeah. Everyone stepped up to play. Performed, man. There are certain artists who, when I saw their name, I was like, of course they're going to shine on this. Pot of Paper is never not going to shine on an album of this nature. Pot of Paper shines. Wretch is cool. Koji Radical. I'm not going to pass this album review without talking about the fact that Koji Radical makes every song he's on better. He's never made the song worse. People need to start calling his number more because every time I hear him on the album, I get really excited because it's just so good. M. Huncho came to play. Lilo Green. Look what the Weed Man done. Yeah. Look what the Weed Man. Oh, man. Listen, yeah, I need to hear more of Lilo Green. I'm so excited to hear more of Lilo Green because that little hook that she hopped on, man, big highlight. Everyone came to play, man. Calvish, you mentioned earlier. Wow, I hadn't heard from him before, or heard of him before, but this has put him on my radar because man, he was spitting. Oh, everyone stepped up. Man. There was no one who disappointed. No one who started rapping who I was like, take me back to Nines. Like, I enjoyed everyone who came on, and then Nines only added to the enjoyment. Yeah, there was a lot of features on this album, by the way. It was a lot of features, but it doesn't feel like a lot of features because throughout it, as good as all these features sounds, the best person on this album is always Nines, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the features are spread out in a nice way with that. I'll go back to your Clavish point. For me, Clavish has one of my higher rate rap albums of the year so far. It's just long as shit, bro. Like it's actually just it's annoyingly long. Like
How
it's one
long
of
is
those albums you just for God's sake.
it?
It's one of those albums where you'll look at it and you actually feel disrespected by how long the album is because it's like who do you think I am? Do you know I pay tax, bro? Rap game awful. It's an hour and 29 minutes.
Damn. 1 hour 29 minutes in
It's a movie,
2023.
bro.
Oh my
It's
god.
like it. Oh my goodness.
I was really
It's
expecting you to say
crazy.
like an hour. 1 hour
Mm,
29 minutes is that's a bit outrageous. I don't know if I'm listening
that's
to that. I'll be real with you.
it's a bit insane, but it is one of my favorite rap albums of the year. To be honest with you, and he showed up again here, like his verse on Different League, where he's like, "Respect from my niggas up in the trap. If it weren't for rap, I'd be in there too. The feds, they hate me. They know I done some shavings, bait, but left no clue." Before I continue, actually, I want to take this time to use this as our episode moment to once again call upon correctional facilities to free Pooh Shiesty. It's enough. It's enough.
He's sorry, man.
It's enough.
He's sorry.
He's sorry. Look what happened. They freed Nines, and look at the beauty that he's doing in the streets, man.
Man.
He's tapped out. Imagine now more with Pooh Shiesty, man. That's the problem. Music hasn't been in a good place since they locked up Pooh Shiesty, and there's a dissertation that needs to be written on that. But no one will give me the money to do the PhD for it. So it's just sat here in this big ass bald head that I've got. But if I really took the time to sit down and I could explain to niggas why music is in a terrible place since Pooh Shiesty got locked.
Man, put papers in now as well, man.
Bruv.
Anyway,
but yeah, no, the features they all did come to play. I couldn't agree with you more, man. Everyone did their thing. No one really and no one, like I said, no one outstayed their welcome. And Nines was always the lead star of the project, so that was good. It's great to hear scraps. It was great to hear scraps.
Yeah,
on Highly Blessed as well. Overall, good work. Overall, good work from everyone.
Yeah, I agree.
Songs.
Songs, tough one. I think for me, number 3, I go Calendar. Okay. It stands out from the rest. But it's just a fun song. Fun from the very beginning, from the little skit intro that we get to the end where he's just going for him to switch from, all right, cool, this is how like the different day girls are, but then him to switch to, but my Aries chick, my Gemini chick, my Cancer chick. I'm just going into descriptions on all of them. Now, I'm not one of those witchcraft people, one of those sun moon people, so I don't know if his descriptions are accurate, but it's fun. It's fun to listen to. It's really fun to listen to. Calendar, I always have a good time listening to, so that's my number 3. Number 2 is the intro. I think it is probably one of the better intros I've heard this year so far. It's great. It's such a good. It is literally just an introduction to this whole album. It serves as an excellent synopsis to what this album is going to be. And then number 1 for me is the outro, because the outro, as you said, it just bookends a brilliant story where you get to the outro and you look at the subject matter of all the songs that have come before the outro, and it's just like, man, it is a beautiful thing that we've gotten to this point here, and it makes you want to go through the journey all over again. So that is my list.
I like it. No matter, man. I was very close to being similar, but at 3 I got Different League. Just really great track. I really, like I said, we're gonna be all right if we put Nate Smalls on every hook. Clavish was rapping his ass off. Nines was just rapping in the form he was in all album as well. So I was a really big fan of that. At 2, I got the outro. Big fan of it. For everything you said and for everything we've really discussed throughout this podcast already today. And at number 1, it just gives me a really good vibe. I really like Favela. I've really fucked with Favela. I love Jay Styles on the hook. very different to obviously the outro or the intro, which I think you put eloquently. But I am such a huge fan of Favela. Like every time I hear it, I'm like, yeah, this is like a jam. It's like my like the way on Oh Maya's on Crop Circle and the way Airplane Mode is on Crabs in a Bucket. This is my one from that where I'm like, as much as Nines raps hard and does all of that, this he also does better than anyone else. These type of tracks will just go off in a car on your aux or whatever. So I got Valor at 1, Outro at 2, and Different League at 3. Can we take it to the scales?
Yeah, sure. You been in the favela? Out of curiosity.
Have I been in favela? I was born and raised in the favela. Presently, no. I'm not in London.
But you've been there. You know what that lifestyle is.
I was born and raised in I was born and raised in a favela. Now I live in luxury, unlike some of the scum that live throughout that area that we call this nation's capital. You know you can't stand in central London for too long and breathe the air. Like
your hatred for London. One day we're really gonna have to understand it. We're gonna have to dissect it fully. Not this podcast, but
I've explained in so many different terms why I don't like that city, and people will be like, "But why don't you like it?" So you think I'm supposed to like breathing in toxins, like above the no?
Yeah.
Continue, man. Give us the scales.
Man, the Two Stubborn Nigerian rankings go as such. I hate I ever listened to this. Won't be listened to it again. Whole lot of mid. Might stay in rotation for about a week. Pretty damn good. Serious project. And then either me and or Paul can give it our 50% stamp of approval. In the case that we both give it our stamp of approval, the album will become Two Stubborn Nigerians approved. Paul, what ranking are you giving this album?
I got pretty damn good, man. I like it. It's a good project. I liked it more than I thought I was going to like it going into it, which was a really good surprise. It's a very smooth listen, easy to get through. There was never a moment, though, where I felt like this is like, I don't have it as high. We've reviewed enough rap albums this year and we've listened to enough rap albums this year that now I can say, how do you rate amongst this album and that album? And there was never moments where I felt it touched the higher echelon rap albums that we touched upon this year. But it's a pretty damn good album. So I go there.
Fair. I think I have it as a serious album. It is an album that is a tough one because I'm on the edge between serious album and pretty damn good. It's one of the better sounding albums, I think, from this year. It's an album that will definitely have a long lifespan for me. That being said, though, the reason I'm tempted to drop it down into pretty damn good is literally just whilst it's been out, there's been a lot of times where I've had this album on, I've been enjoying this album, but I've also wanted to listen to other albums that have come out this year, which is a bit of a hindrance. It's a bit of something that says, maybe you're not as big of a fan of this album as you think you are. But for now, what this album is, and the fact that this album has gotten better on every listen, and the fact that whilst I'm listening to it, it gets better between the intro and the outro, I think it would be unfair for me to put it any lower than Serious Project for now. So I have it as Serious Project. Yep, cool. So that was Crop Circle 2 by Nines. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to the channel, watch our other videos. Hey, leave a comment on this video letting us know what other albums you'd like us to review, if any, and what you thought about this one.